Well, good Tuesday morning, everyone. I thought you would tune back in because we're meeting our new pastor, Andy Wood, this week. And we left off yesterday. He was just meeting his soon-to-be wife, Stacy. And so we're going to pick right back up where we left off yesterday. And then we're going to talk about how he got into church planting. And he's had the privilege of planting, well, they together, of planting two churches. Echo Church up in the Bay Area was the one he came to us from, but he has done church planting twice. I admire that. It's awesome. God is using him in a mighty way in our midst. So let's jump back in, pick up the story, and it's a good one, of him proposing to Stacy.
So we dated for a while, then the relationship kind of fell apart a bit. But Stacy, after that, she was kind of always back and forth. Like, did she want to be together or not? I was never in question. Like, I knew I wanted to be with her. And there was a period of time, the summer between our sophomore and junior year of college, and I was on a traveling trip going through South Carolina. And she had just gotten home from being on a mission trip to down in Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
And everybody else on the team had somebody that they could hang out with, like they had friends or family members. I was like one of the only ones. So I played the pity card, and we came and hang out. She came and hung out with me. And I knew at that point, like I still wanted to be together with her. And she was in this in-between zone. And she'd kind of come back, and then she'd change her mind and she'd come back. But I knew that had to stop. So the way that I did this was I shared with her the vision that God had put in my heart. So that summer, God really firmed up in my heart vision for ministry, for the kind of church that I would be a part of, even the kind of church that I would start. So we can talk more about that later. We started two churches together, but all that had firmed up, and I shared that vision with her. And then I said, I really would love for you to be a part of this. I'd love for you to be a part of the church. But the only way you're going to be a part of the church that I want to start is if you're my wife. And so I would love for you to be that, and for that to be our reality, but you've got to decide. So no more of this back and forth stuff. I want you to take 2 weeks, pray about it, get back to me, and let me know if you want to be together. And so she took some time and prayed about it. And obviously, where she landed.
That is a unique romantic strategy that I've not heard before. But I admire it. And when you talked about it in that one sermon, you were making a point that it was a 20 seconds of courage, or you were trying to get, which, by the way, I had not heard that concept before. And I really appreciated that's a very good insight for me in general.
Yeah.
But that was one, I think you mentioned that you had to employ something like that.
Yeah. That moment took 20 seconds of courage. And actually that idea it came from a movie called We Bought a Zoo. And in the movie, the dad is sitting down with the son, and the son needs courage for this relationship. And he said, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of crazy, insane courage. And so that concept really stuck with me. And then, it's really an easy thing to put your mind around, to say, okay, a lot of times when you're having to make a courageous decision, sometimes all that it takes is just that 20 seconds to step into it and do the courageous thing.
Well, Andy, that's something I've taken numerous things from your sermons already. We're just getting started. I look forward to what God says through you, but that's one that really stuck with me also. So you mentioned that you actually started another church before Echo. For the listeners, that Echo was the previous one that was, you were in the Bay Area. But was there something prior to that?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go forward from college. Stacy and I got married in 2003, and then we moved to Fort Worth, Texas, to go to seminary at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And while we were there, we knew that we wanted to be trained to do ministry, to eventually start a church. And the vision that God had put in my heart was already kind of formalizing or coming more clear. And there was this guy there, his name's John Worcester, and he had started a church. And that church was a unique model. So they actually didn't meet on Sunday mornings, they met on Sunday nights. And on Sunday mornings, they would send their people out to start other churches. So they had started like 5 or 6 churches at the time. And John and his wife, Diane, had been connected to my in-laws back in the 70s. So they had served in ministry. And my father-in-law, who's a retired pastor, had been basically their director for an internship in the 70s in student ministry. And John at the time had started like 5 or 6 churches, he and his wife, Diane. And he came to Stacy and I, so we met through my father-in-law. We started attending his church, and he came to us and he said, I know eventually you want to start a church, but why don't you just do it now? I think you could do it. I think you have the gifts, the wiring. I'd love for you to do it. I'll coach you, mentor you. I'll come alongside you. So we had actually only been married about 4 or 5 months at that time.
Wow. And
we started prayed about it for, a handful of weeks. And now looking back, it seemed like such a short period of time to pray about it. But at the time, it felt long. And came back and just thought, well, in the Bible, there was this guy named Paul, and he was one of the great church starters of the New Testament in the Bible. And he had this younger guy, Timothy, who was his apprentice. And Timothy went on all these trips. And I had the thought, well, if Paul said to Timothy, I'll help you start a church, it'd be a missed opportunity to not say yes to that. Yeah. So Stacy and I said yes to that. It was 2003. And it ended up being that we started the church on a local university's campus called UT Arlington, University of Texas at Arlington. And that campus, or that church, grew. We started reaching international students and saw a really diverse group of people come together over the 5 years that we were there. So we were there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 5 years. I was going to grad school at seminary and pastoring at the same time.
And so then when you graduated, then that led to the Echo.
Right.
And you led that other
so
one. Yeah.
The way that worked out was we knew that we eventually wanted to move outside of the Bible Belt. And what happened was probably like late 2006, early 2007, I started feeling like, okay, now that time is coming that we need to pursue that vision that God put in my heart, actually in high school.
Wow.
And we got out a big whiteboard, drew a map of the United States, started doing our research to say, okay, which cities have the fewest number of churches, which cities are most ethnically diverse, which cities have the fewest number of new churches being started. And then that led us on a journey where we kind of narrowed it down to the Southern California, the Bay Area, Seattle, Miami, Boston, and DC. Those were like some of the major cities that we had kind of focused in on. And then we took a trip to the San Francisco Bay Area. God really put a burden on our heart for that region. And we moved there in the summer of 2008 to start what would eventually become Echo Church.
Well, all those cities that you mentioned could have used and do still need those churches. So there was not a bad choice amongst those. So that's just where the Lord led you, and then he blessed that. And I thought it was really interesting in your talks last Sunday that 17 churches you mentioned had actually helped you or mentored you or had input into that Echo Church. And that is so cool to hear the body of Christ doing that together.
That investment from those 17 churches moved us forward so much faster had they not been partnered with us.
See you tomorrow to continue this story.
And I won't worry about tomorrow.